All right, so here is your participial phrase video. There was your cameo from my cat. Participial phrases. You know them already. They're so important. Here's your video on them. Participial phrases begin with participles. They go on to include some other words. They, like all phrases, are dependent parts of the sentence. They won't contain the subject or verb, the essential stuff of the sentence. They're optional, removable. You could take them out of the sentence and the sentence would still work. They're very often, but not always, set off by commas. They can be in the beginning, the middle, or the end of the sentence. There's the cat again. He's getting into his box, his window box. They are a sentence component that helpfully must, most of the time, almost always begin with the participle. Most of the time, but they don't absolutely have to. They could have an adverb first. A participle is a verbal, which is a kind of verb that isn't acting exactly like a verb, acting in a different way, that ends in ing or ed. Ing for present, ed for past. Participles show action, so they act like verbs. They also describe, so they act like adjectives. They won't be the main conjugated verb of the sentence, like we said. Present participles end in ing, unlike ing main verbs, which cannot be removed from the sentence and retain the sentence's meaning and grammatical correctness. Participles are removable, optional. Present participle examples: running, confusing, truncating, switching, exposing. Present participle in a sentence: clearing his throat loudly, he stepped out from the bookshelves. So we have clearing at the start, and then some other words: his throat and loudly. His throat as a direct object, loudly as an adverb, of course. Not a present participle, not removable from the sentence. He was clearing his throat loudly. Here, clearing is part of the main verb. It's the past progressive form of the verb. He was clearing his throat. You need both of them to express the verb and for the sentence to be correct. Past participles end in ed unless it's an irregular verb with an irregular form. Unlike ed main verbs, which can't be removed, participles are removable: confused, attacked, ensconced, truncated. Past participle in a sentence: he stood still, attacked by the words, and didn't speak. A present and past participial phrase in one sentence. Curled up inside a big 1-meter drainage pipe that ran under the road, she had her baseball glove in her mouth, and she was rocking back and forth, banging her head repeatedly against the back of the pipe. First, we have a past one opening the sentence. Closing it, we have a present. This sentence is from a literary text, but I'm forgetting what right now. Lots of these examples are taken from the same work text I've referenced in other grammar videos, the Grammar for High School by Don and Jenny Kilgallen. This is useful. So a past participial phrase can be in a present tense sentence, and a present participial phrase can be in a past tense sentence. Present or pastness of the participle doesn't mean that it's only applicable in the corresponding tense sentence. It's just more about like the relation of the thing being described to itself. It's not, it has more to do with the word. It doesn't have to do with the sentence tense. It'll sound right to you or incorrect to you, most likely. All right, this is just a review again of things we've already talked about. Participial phrases are named for the words that start them, participles. Participle is a verb plus the ending ing or ed unless it's irregular, and then it'll get a different past tense ending, like learnt, L-E-A-R-N-T, instead of learned. Right? That sounds right. Good. After the participle, the phrase can continue into some other words. It could have a prepositional phrase, walking into the woods, an adverb, walking loudly, an infinitive phrase, walking to the lighthouse. They are most often set off by commas, makes them easier to find. Sometimes they will not be, though. They're always optional and therefore dependent parts, as all phrases are. As all phrases that aren't acting as the subject of the sentence, like a gerund phrase can. They can always be removed and the sentence will retain its integrity and grammatical correctness. Will never be part of the independent clause. Some more examples from that same work text. Sitting up in bed eating breakfast, we could see the lake and the mountains across the lake on the French side. From Farewell to Arms, present participial phrase starting that sentence. Said Tao, searching the spot of black in the twilight sea that night, had his reward. Participial phrase between the subject and the verb here. In a sentence by Pearl S. Buck. The sun rose clear and bright, tinging the foamy crests of the waves with a reddish purple. Present participial phrase ending the sentence by Alexander Dumas. Past participles. In 6 months, a dozen small towns had been laid down upon the naked planet, filled with sizzling neon tubes and yellow electric bulbs. Wonderful. This should be Ray Bradbury. The tent, illuminated by candle, glowed warmly in the midst of the plain. Past participial phrase separating the subject and verb by Jack London. Enchanted and enthralled, I stopped her constantly for details by Richard Wright. 2 lone past participles, no adding, no decorative extra words, closing it out there. So they can come in the beginning, middle, or end of the sentence. Again, here's some examples from Lord of the Flies by William Golding, which you read most likely if you were here in 9th grade. The boys lay, panting like dogs. Then he laughed so strangely that they were hushed, looking at the flash of his spectacles in astonishment. Flattened against his palm, Roger breathed heavily. And now your turn. Add present participial phrases to these following 5 sentences, and then past participial phrases to these. So you can pause the video here if you want to, if you're just using these notes on the video to follow along, or you can reference the notes to have copies of these sentences in order to complete them. So this is your participial phrase extra practice, and that was your participial phrase video. See you soon.